How hard is it to move up the distances? From a 5k to a 10k, from a 10k to a half marathon, and from a half marathon to the full. In this video, I'll go through the training you'll need to do in order to progress up the distances. And hopefully at the end of it, help you consider whether it's worth it moving up to longer races. Let's start off with the 5k, the shortest of the long distance running events. In all the distances, the structure of the training is fairly similar. The only difference has been how long they are and what sort of workouts and intervals you do. The time required to run a 5k could be as short as around 15 minutes for elites, or even up to 40 minutes and beyond for a lot more beginner runners. What sort of training should you do for something of this length? There is only so much intensity the body can handle during the week. Because of this, it means we'll keep, across all the distances, a maximum of 2 workouts per week. The difference between the distances is the difference in the workout. Your threshold, or zone 4, is the sort of pace that you can hold for about an hour. Now, even at the longest time that I mentioned, say a 40-minute 5k, that sort of time is still shorter than 1 hour, which means it's still a pace that's above your threshold. Your zone 5, or VO2 max intensity, is something you can hold between about 3 to 5 minutes. Now, if you think about it in terms of racing distance, for the elites, that's people running the 1500 or the mile. Based on those 2 time distances, 5 minutes and 1 hour, it means that your 5k distance is somewhere between about your threshold pace and your VO2 max pace. Conventional training wisdom is that for a 5k, you spend the majority of your workouts doing VO2 max reps. Now, this has changed significantly over the last couple of years, and more recently, the more widespread training philosophy is that threshold training is actually the more beneficial stimulus. The reason for this is that even though 5k is still relatively short compared to the marathon, it is still predominantly an aerobic race, meaning it's all about your heart and your lungs and their capacity. Now that we've got all that out of the way, what sort of workouts should you be doing for a 5k? Now, for a 5k, you should be looking to do 500 meters and 1k reps. So something like 6 to 8 1k reps, or 12 to 14 500 meter reps at your VO2 max rough intensity. The reason you'd be doing that is because you want to do above the 5k distance in your workouts. You want the body to already be prepped for that upcoming race. And you'd be looking to do that maybe one day a week at 500 meter reps, another day at 1k. But you'll be building up. You don't start at 6 by 1k. You start at maybe 2 or 3 by 1k, and every couple of weeks, slowly build it up so that you are doing that full 5k of intensity. The long run for a 5k would typically peak at around about an hour. If your 5k time is about 20 minutes, it means the long run is about 3 times that. Now, you can go further, and it is good aerobic stimulus, but for a 5k you don't really need to. While going longer might help you if you were to eventually do a 10k or beyond, if you're only going to ever target the 5k, there's diminishing returns in terms of extending that long run out beyond an hour. The rest of your week will be filled with as many recovery and easy runs as possible. Many beginners only want to do 3 runs per week. So in that case, you do 1 workout, 1 easy run, and 1 long run. It's only when you get above 4 runs a week that should add in that second workout. So if you're doing 4 runs a week, it's 1 workout, 2 easy, 1 long, and 5 a week is 2 workouts, 2 easy, 1 long. If you do want to do doubles, just make them easy. Doing more than about 2 workouts per week just increases fatigue and doesn't necessarily provide any additional gains. When it comes to racing the 10k distance, using the similar structure to the 5k will work just as well for you. When it comes to the intervals, you can keep doing the 500s or the 1k reps, but you could also consider extending it a bit further, something like 1 mile repeats. The main difference between the 5 and the 10k is the amount of intervals you do. You still want to make sure you do at least the distance, so you at least want to do 10k worth of work. Preferably you'd get to between 10 and 15k in your peak weeks, but a minimum of 10. Another favorite workout of mine is called the envelope run. What is an envelope run? It's essentially a 5 to 10 minute warm up and cool down. In the middle, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever you want, at your zone 3 / tempo pace. You're enveloping the tempo with the zone 2, easy, hence the name. 10k being a 5. It doesn't mean you're running for twice as long. It actually means you're going to be running for longer. So a top 10k about 30 minutes, while a more beginner will be under 1 hour 30 mark. Because you're running for longer, you can't hold those same high intensity zones as you can for a 5k. For a 10k, you're actually going to be more in zone 3, which is something you can hold for about 1 to 2 hours. When it comes to the long run for a 10k, now this needs to be a bit longer than you would for a 5k, but about an hour and a half should be more than sufficient for your long run for a 10k. For the majority of runners, that will be enough time to actually run the distance at an easy pace before comes race day, where you got to pound it hard. How fast should you be increasing the length of your runs? Now, whether you're running a 5k, 10k, half or a full marathon, I do it exactly the same way. The second half of this video might look a bit different. I actually filmed the first half about 2 weeks ago, and it says it's supposed to be no rain today, but it's raining a little bit. It's the only time I've got to finish up this video, so sorry guys in advance if it looks a bit not as great in terms of production quality, but I'm trying my best. Anyway, getting back into it. So personally, I'm not a fan of training to distance. I don't train to like, oh, I'm going to go do a 10k run, 15k run, whatever. For me, it's all about time and time on feet. An hour of running has the exact same stimulus for someone in zone 2. Now, if your zone 2 is 4-minute Ks, you're going to do 15k in that hour. But if your zone 2 is like mine, and it's more like 7-minute Ks, then you're only going to do 8.5. But 1 hour is 1 hour. For both of these people, they're getting the exact same stimulus. Because of this, the best way that I've found to increase your mileage each week is not add distance. You don't add 1k every week. What I like to do is add about 5 minutes to each run. So if you're doing 30 minutes 1 week, the next week you're doing 35, then 40, 45. I do like to take a rest week every couple of weeks. So once you go to 45, you drop back down to 40, then you climb it up again. 45, 50, back down to 45, so on and so forth. You then continue this until you get to your desired session length. So if you only want to get to an hour, you'd probably stop increasing it when you get there. But if you want to get to an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, each week add 5 minutes. And eventually, you'll get there. I'm currently doing my midweek sessions at about an hour and a half, but it's taken me a year. Probably took me 9 weeks, 9 months to get to that, starting at 30 minutes. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, I found the more that you simplify your training, the more you can focus your energy and your time on everything else in life. You can spend more time with your family, more time with your work, more time just doing maybe nutrition or strength and conditioning. And you've got more time and energy to focus on other stuff. You improve your running overall. Half marathons and marathons have very similar structure for their intervals. This is because they can last anywhere from about an hour for really fast half marathoners, all the way up to 6-7 hours for more slower marathon runners. This means that long intervals is the name of the game. Now, my favorite session is reps at about the 10-minute range at your threshold pace. Now for me, that's around the 2k mark. For you, it might be a bit longer or shorter, but I think 10 minutes is a good sweet spot. Another favorite session of mine, as I mentioned a bit earlier in the 10k section, is a long tempo. Anywhere from about 30 minutes straight to 2 hours. If you did want to break it up, you could do 30-minute reps, but I love me a good 2 hour at tempo, straight solid sesh. Oh, it is brutal, but you feel fantastic once you finished it. Now, tempo is your zone 3. Now, zone 3 is a sort of intensity that you can hold between about 1 to 2 hours. If you're running at that pace or intensity for longer than 2 hours, it's not physiologically possible, which means you're actually in zone 2. Now, zone 2 is the intensity that you can hold for between 2 and 4 hours. If you're doing a marathon at say 6 or 7 hours, then the whole marathon is actually in zone 1, because zone 1 is a sort of intensity you can hold all day, and so anything over 4 hours becomes your zone 1. The long run for a half marathon doesn't need to be much longer than about 2.5 hours. That's the sort of sweet spot I've found. Now, you still want to do at least the distance, so you want to make sure you cover at least the 21.1k. But 2.5 hours, I think, is a good level of base endurance for half. As you step up to the full, you probably want to do a long run of 3.5 hours. Especially as a slower runner, you want to make sure you've got as much time on feet in training as possible. You don't want to come into a marathon with only a 2 to 2.5 hour long run, and then you're out there for 4 or 5 hours and you're doing double the longest distance, the longest time you've ever done. You want to go into a race confident that your training is enough to get you through the hard parts and to keep you motivated to push for the whole race. As you can see, the longer the race, the lower the zone is that you're racing in. And so what you want to do is have a lot more specificity in your training. If you're racing in zone 1, why would you train in zone 4 or 5? At the same point, if you're racing in zone 4 or 5, you want to make sure you're doing enough time at that specific intensity level. So if you are a slower runner like me and you're aiming for the marathon, so important to make sure you spend a lot of time in your easy zones 1 and 2. While it's great doing fast 200s, 400s, 1Ks for your Strava, realistically, if you want to be the best that you can, which I want to, I am going to the Olympics in 6 years. And that's why, for me, the most important training is zone 1 and 2. Making sure that zones are as high as possible, because that is what's going to get me the results, not these short 5-minute efforts. With all that said and done, how many hours should you be training per week? This is a massively personal question, and it's based on how much free time you actually have. Are you able to move your work around? Are you able to fit in your personal life, your family life? For 5k, minimum you want to do is about 2 hours of running per week. If you're doing the marathon, you might even be up to, 8, 9 hours of training. I personally do about 12, but if you look at the pros, a lot of the pro men are running 200k weeks, and that takes them between 12 to 14 hours. On the endurance athlete scale, that's actually quite low. So you find most triathletes are doing 25 hours of training. Most cyclists are doing similar 25 hours. So 12 to 14 is actually on the low end, but you'll see they're doing 200k. 200k is a ton of distance. But how much you do each week is fully dependent on the race you're targeting, with the shorter distance needing less volume, and also on your goals. The more you run, the more volume you do, the faster you will improve your times. But the more risk there is of injury. What's more important? Being consistent and training 3-4 hours a week for 10 years, or doing a couple of bursts of 10 to 15 hours and having 2 weeks off every 6 months with injury. I hope you guys found this video enjoyable. If you did, please drop a like and a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.